thank you for joining me on another Saturday morning share. Today I want to talk about markers. So ideally or primarily, if you're into coloring your images in with markers, there's several options, I guess I can say. I guess the primary option is the Copic marker, which is quite pricey, but comes in a wide variety of colors, almost over 300 colors, and gives you the ability to blend and shade and get dimension on your images. There are other options out there. There are Spectrum Noir markers. Prima, I believe, has another type of marker. But today I wanted to share a marker that I just came across. My sister-in-law actually introduced them to me just last week. I asked her to pick me up a couple, and I kind of wanted to do a little demo to show you the differences between, or how it compares with, the Copic marker that I originally started collecting. So I have 4 points of comparison that I want to discuss with you. I guess first will be like the physical appearance of this marker as it compares to the Copic, and then I wanted to also go through color compatibility, the color intensity and brightness, as well as the blendability of these markers. So first I'll just start discussing the overall appearance as it compares. So the marker that I am discussing is the Cheyenne Art marker. It's called a touch marker. As you can see, the body is pretty similar. Like the Copic, and my favorite part of the Copic, it has a brush tip, and you can see that the touch marker also has a very similar brush tip. The casing is a little more rectangular as opposed to the Copic, which is more oval shaped. Something else that I really like about the touch marker is that the caps are labeled. And they do have both the color name and the color number, or alphanumeric number sequencing, to describe the color. And the cap is also matched to indicate what approximately the marker color is. You will notice that the touch marker is a little bit smaller, a little bit harder to read, and on this particular one, for instance, there's a little imperfection in the color name. I forgot to mention that the touch markers also do have the chisel tip as well, same as your Copic marker, which is there. So physically they look to be about the same in terms of coloring with them. The touch marker is a little bit wider, I would say. Maybe doesn't fit in your hand as easily as the Copic, but it's very slight difference. So for the comparison for incompatibility, what I wanted to do was just demonstrate how well these markers can be used with the Memento Tuxedo Black and the Ranger Archival Jet Black ink, which are primarily the inks I use anyways when I'm coloring with my Copics. More so the Memento, but the Ranger is also it's a permanent ink. So I just wanted to demonstrate how the markers work on these sorts of images. I stamped these maybe 5 minutes ago, so they haven't really had a lot of time to cure, but we'll see how that goes. So Copics are going to be on the left, touch is going to be on the right, and I will just kind of haphazardly color outside of the line there, and you'll see that there's no bleeding. On the Ranger, there is some with the Copic marker. And I probably should have heat set that in advance. Again, with the touch marker on the Memento, you see no bleeding. And on the Archival, again, you do see some bleeding. Next, I wanted to go through the color, intensity, and brightness. So I did try and purchase colors that were different from the Copics that I currently have in my collection because I kind of want to use the touch markers to fill in some gaps. So I picked 3 different sets that were similar in terms of color so we can see the color intensity. So for the Copics, I'll leave the caps here. For the touch markers, I will leave the caps here, which I hope is still on camera, but something I just discovered, the caps don't stand up. So that's R22 French, and that's not going to stay. So for the color intensity, you've kind of already seen it up there, but that's our YR07, and this is the French from Touch. Similar in terms of the saturation of the color and the brightness and intensity. Another set is R27, so cadmium red for the Copics. Let me use the brush tip. And its mirroring color is carmine, which is R11 in the touch marker. So I just wanted to note that the tips are actually quite similar, in my opinion, in terms of the color saturation. But I did notice a little bit that the touch marker has a little bit more of a streaky appearance to it. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but there's a little bit more of a streaky appearance than what you see with the Copics. And the last color combination that I wanted to demonstrate was, this is a Chio Copic, but same idea. That's V17. And you'll see the color there. And this is lavender, which is P83 for the touch marker. And again, you see a little bit more of the streakiness in the touch marker. It's very slight, and as it dries, I think it improves, so you don't see it as much, but there's that to note. Also, especially with the lavender, you see a little bit of a dullness slightly in the color. It's not as bright and as intense as the Copic color. I know the colors are not identical, but there seems to be a little bit more of the white paper showing through this color as opposed to this. Again, very slight. You might not even be able to see that at home. So the last measure that I wanted to consider is the blendability. How well do these markers mix when you use them solely, but I also will do one where you mix Copics and touch markers together. So now what I'm going to do is I'm picked 3 Copics from my collection, Y15, Y19, and Y38. And then I've picked 3 of the touch markers in similar hues. These are slightly darker colors. But these are YR24, YR23, and R22. And I'm going to color in the outermost butterflies for each of these markers types. Then I'm going to, in the middle, pick a combination of these colors and blend in the middle butterfly using both of these markers together, and I'll show you the final images once I've completed them, and we'll do a little bit of a comparison. Okay, so I colored, I've written the colors that I particularly used. at the top here. You'll notice that for the Copics, you get the blending, no issues. You also see with the touch marker, slightly different color combinations, but again, you see the deeper color in fading out, which is what I was attempting to do. And then in the middle here, I used one touch marker, so the darker orange is the touch marker, and then it fades using the other two. For me, and I guess this is the part where I'm going to give my disclaimer, I'm not an illustrator. You guys who watch my channel know I'm into cards and crafts, and for my purposes, results that I got were, for my purposes, any one of these three combinations would work. So I particularly didn't see a difference in terms of the blendability. If you're an illustrator, you might have a different take on that, but for my purposes, this is great. So one other thing I wanted to point out before I go into my last point of comparison, which is price and availability, is the back of the page. So you'll notice this side was the Copic side, and this side was the touch marker side, and there's less bleed through with the touch markers in general when we do a side-by-side comparison. I think this has to do with the fact that the touch markers tend to be a little bit drier, which I think contributes to that streaky appearance that I was referring to earlier. However, that does have the added benefit of meaning that there is less bleed through. I'm using really flimsy cardstock because I needed to run this through my printer. It's 65-pound cardstock. So with a heavier cardstock, which I normally use for my cards, is 110, 120 pound, the bleed through will be significantly reduced. So something else to keep in mind if you're doing a one-layer card with Copics, with coloring, it might be easier to do that without bleed through if you're using a touch marker. Then my last point is availability and price. So right now, I was able to purchase these touch markers at an art supply store that's available here in Toronto. Desires, I believe it's how it's pronounced, but I'll put it on the screen so that you can actually get the pronunciation and go to their website if you want to. Copics, again, are also available at most, if not all, art supply stores. They're also available at Michael's. Online, you can again find both of these online at various retailers. However, I've noticed that the crafty websites only particularly have Copics or Spectrum Noir markers. I've yet to see touch markers on those websites. Something else to point out is the price. And I think this is where the real delineation between Copics and touch markers come into play. Touch markers are about half the price. So regular price, these markers are $4.50, whereas the Copics regular price are about $7.99 to $10.99, depending on where you're purchasing them. The touch markers, I got these on sale at Desires for $2.99, which is a steal when compared to what you normally pay for Copic markers. Considering that the results are pretty consistent across both markers, I would say that the touch markers, although there is a little bit of maybe less quality, I would say, because of the saturation of the color and some of the other things that I pointed out, if those issues don't bother you, and I think for me they're not going to bother me, I have no issues with gradually building up my touch markers to kind of fill in the Copic colors that I'm missing. The fact that they work and blend well together is great for me. That allows me to not start over, but just expand my collection with a little bit of a cheaper option. So I hope that's helpful for you guys, and potentially if you can get your hands on them, you can try them out and do this sort of comparison for yourself. But yeah, so I hope this was helpful, and thanks for watching. Bye.